Hey everybody, and welcome to Straight to the Point Tennis. Let's get straight to the point. Today we're going to do a shoe review, direct comparison between the Nike Vapor 12 on our left and the Nike Vapor 9.5 reissue from 2022, 2023, somewhere in there on our right hand side. In general, I think both these shoes are great competitive options in 2025. Sadly, we're not getting the Vapor 9.5 reissue anymore. It was just a one-year limited release, but you can still get them new online from various sources. All right, so starting with the outsole shank features on each shoe, I think both utilize herringbone, both have that split 4-foot heel outsole setup. But one thing that's quite different between the two shoes is the size of the midfoot shank and the way that it interacts with your playing experience. So on the 9.5, we have this smaller midfoot shank, which to me is kind of the perfect size, just covers that like middle part of your foot. On the 12, they really did move to this more maximalist construction where you have a lot of shank going on here. That's basically half my hand throughout the shoe. I mentioned this in the Vapor 12 review. It does creep into the midsole, and I think that does hurt the comfort of the shoe, especially in the midfoot region. When you're going for a push off, it's super stable and interacts nicely with the foot frame. But for me, it just doesn't really give enough comfort throughout the midfoot and enough contact with the court surface. In terms of the rubber compounds on these two, the 9.5 has the XDR, a classic rubber compound used in Nike tennis shoes. And for me, that compound wears nice and consistently throughout its life cycle. This new compound that they're using on the Vapor 12, even though the traction pattern is pretty shallow, it is super malleable, soft rubber. So I feel like I can almost pick it off here. And in my opinion, it's a very quick wear on the court. So if I had to pick between these two, I'm definitely going 9.5. I love the lateral side of the traction pattern. It's also throughout the heel. It's this more deep, porous herringbone that gives you a little bit of sliding ability. On the medial toe section, they have that shallower traction pattern. I think it's a great classic setup and the reason why this shoe is so popular over the years, despite the fact that, ironically, Federer didn't even use this traction. He used the Vapor Speed traction throughout his entire playing career. All right, so next we're going to move on to the midsole comparison, cushion comparison. Now, the interesting thing is the distance between these two shoes' releases is about 10 years, but the cushion setup remains largely the same. So we have Zoom Air in the heel, which to me is too minimalist. The Vapor 4 and 5 had full-length Zoom cushion in 2007, 2008. We can do better for tennis players, Nike, and give us a little bit more relief between our feet and the concrete surface. In the forefoot, you have just a simple Phylon setup, and one thing I've remarked about before is that the 9.5 did do a good job at providing this, more foam element, softer rubber between the upper and the outsole. The 12 has brought that back, but it does kind of thin out, similar to how the Vapor X, Vapor Pro 1 midsole setup was. In general, if I had to pick one of these, I would take the 9.5 midsole setup. Just more cushioned out of the box, and even though it does bottom out in the forefoot quickly, the heel response ages well over time. Lastly, going to walk through the uppers of both of these shoes and tell you which one I'd pick. One exciting thing about the Vapor 12 is that they did bring back an attempt at adaptive lacing, where they've used these sort of extended eyelets to really cinch the upper. Ironically, the Vapor 9.5 adaptive fit remains more effective in my opinion, especially on the medial side, because there is sort of less thick plastic material to cinch around that side of your foot. The Vapor 12 is very thick on this side, so you don't get a really one-to-one fit the medial side of your foot, so the arch support. But the 9.5 did provide a lot of arch support just in the inherent ability of its upper design to wrap into that part of your foot really effectively. Breathability wise, I think the 9.5 still reigns supreme, because this overlay that they created, which had less hard plastic than the Vapor 9, is pretty breathable. It's almost like a mesh material to some degree, whereas on the 12, you get a lot of that great breathability on your lateral side, but once you hit this toe section and get into the medial part of the shoe, you know, it's really not going to breathe as well. Definitely doesn't breathe well here. One of our friends in the comments mentioned that this area doesn't flex as well relative to the 9.5, and I definitely agree with that member. You know, just want to, you know, make a quick comparison here. Like, you can see that in that section there is actually a carve out here, so your toe can flex better. Where on the 12, it's very thick, you know, material, sort of a drag guard for those that like to slide. So it's a trade-off there, right? Like, you can have this, you know, more flexible, fast, nimble design in the 9.5, or you can have more of a durable, maximalist design with the 12. So, you know, in general, in terms of the one that I would pick, you all can probably guess it's going to be the 9.5. It's just a better take on adaptive fit, in my opinion. You know, more complete upper design. The vamp of the shoe breathes really nice throughout the tongue section. And then these reissue ones, they redid the tongue relative to the initial 9.5, which had, you know, sort of a cotton material that was not very breathable. Really made your foot sort of sweat in that section of the shoe. They've brought in this really nice, breathable mesh material. So just want to give my final thoughts on both shoes and which one I would choose in general. I think you could tell throughout the review there was a bias leaning towards the 9.5, because in my opinion it's a more complete attempt at a Vapor in terms of design philosophy and execution, but I don't want that to sort of mar what they've done with the Vapor 12, because in my opinion it's an awesome modern Vapor, better tooled for the modern game, where a lot of baseline oriented players are sliding on the medial side of their shoes, where the 9.5 is just simply not durable unless you have a more classic take on your footwork and style, tactics in general. But if you are looking to play modern baseline tennis, looking for something more durable, the Vapor 12 is for sure the option. I think for me, somebody that deploys more classic tactics, classic footwork techniques, you know, a lot of closed stance. If I do go open stance, it's definitely not like a really aggressive slide pushing off. I definitely sort of try and maintain my balance, you know, and not necessarily push off as vigorously as I can. So the 9.5 doesn't really age that brutally in that regard. You know, I can keep the shoes pretty durable in the upper throughout the playing experience. It's sort of the midsole forefoot section tends to bottom out on me the quickest. But in general, I would still pick the 9.5, especially this reissue version with the updates to the tongue section, because in my opinion, it's just a more complete shoe on a match day for a classic type player. Thanks everybody for joining us on this review today. We'll see you in the next one.